Hello and welcome to Sweet Spot DFS. This is a preview video for the 2019 3M Open. This golf course is pretty much played in my backyard. I am a Minnesota native. I've been to the 3M Championship, so that means I've been to this golf course. There is a lot of water on this golf course. I actually have some really good memories. One being when I went to the tournament, the last time I went to the tournament, they were giving out Chichi Rodriguez bobblehead dolls, and me and a buddy actually got it. It was a random something on your ticket, whatever. There was a number on your ticket, and if you had the number, you got the Chichi Rodriguez doll. So, or the bobblehead doll. Afterwards, after the tournament, Chichi Rodriguez was giving autographs, and that was also part of the whole thing too. It was, I think they were showcasing a few golfers, and Chichi was one of them. As I'm in line, the little girl that was in front of me goes up and gets her hat signed or something like that. And she was fairly young, kind of, I don't know, just attention was not focused, and ended up focusing on his golf clubs. He had these pink fairway woods, and I think, I don't know if it was, she was just enamored by them being pink or whatever. He ended up giving her his 5-wood. So as I step in line, I'm like, hey, you got some nice clubs. I'm in high school, I think, or middle school. He's like, yeah, they treat me well. That was it. And then he spoke Japanese to that little girl's parents. So I don't know if he knew them, but it was just like, come on, man. But I ended up getting his signature on the bobblehead doll, and I still have it. So, or actually, I think it's with my dad. Little short story. Hopefully you enjoyed it. Let's look at the course history, or the course information. It's being played at the TPC Twin Cities. They lengthen this golf course. It's typically like 7,100 yards, and it's typically a par 72, but for this week it's a par 71, just to give the PGA Tour players a little bit more of a challenge, because it is fairly easy. Not many trees on the golf course. I mean, there are, but they shouldn't really be in the way. I know during the championship, or the 3M Championship for the Seniors Tour, as I was watching, somebody hit a ball into a patch of trees, but was able to hit a miraculous shot onto the green on hole 18. So it just, the trees aren't going to be a factor. All of the greens, basically, I should say all the holes that have water on them, especially in front of the greens, are all situated on the right side. So basically, what I thought about, or I should say all of the water, so off of the tee, typically the water's on the left. At the green, the water's on the right. To me, that just screams target fade golfers who hit fades. And when we look at the spreadsheet, I will do my best to target to let you guys know who fade the golf ball and who does not. Some of the short holes where the greens look like a good draw would be, hitting a draw would be helpful, are too short to even matter. Like, it doesn't matter for those holes because they're going to be hitting wedges. You're not going to want to shape a shot in, and if you are, it's just going to be slightly. Let's put it this way, a fade isn't going to hurt you hitting a shot into those greens. So I mean, I would target golfers who fade the ball. So like right away at the top of the leaderboard, or at the top of the salary, you had Brooks Koepka. He is notorious for his fade. I would target him. And Hideki hits a pretty straight ball. He can work it both ways, but he typically just hits it straight. So he would be another good golfer to target. We'll get into the player pool a little bit later. Let's keep talking about the golf course. The grass type is bent grass. So we have, my take. If you've watched these videos, I love bent grass. In Minnesota, all of the top end golf courses have bent grass on them. And TPC Twin Cities actually has a strict no POA motto, I guess, whatever you want to call it. So they actually have a program where they spray so POA does not touch this golf course. Like I've always said about POA, POA is an invasive grass. If, say, you were to walk, let's say you golfed a golf course that had POA, POA actually will stick to the bottom of your shoes, and if you were to walk onto a golf course that does not have POA, POA will begin to germinate and take over the golf course. So I know that's a bit too much. That's probably more than you guys need to know. I'm just kind of showing off my knowledge of grass types. So I personally love bent. I think it's the best putting surface to putt on. So I would say target golfers who are good putters, especially those that have good bent grass stats. You can see right above, I have all the top 5 stats going by. There are some stats that if you were to actually look either on my spreadsheet or just look up, you're going to be like, well, you're missing a few golfers. For the bent grass specialist, what I ended up doing was only grabbing golfers who have had 5 or more or over 5 events under their belt for bent grass. I excluded anyone that had less than 5 or less. Just so you guys know, I don't want you guys being in the dark about that. I just, I want to make sure you have some history of bent grass. I don't want, the smallest amount, and maybe it was just an easy track for that golfer. So needless to say, that's all I wanted to get at. The architect for this golf course is Arnold Palmer. I just put it there. Again, a lot of the times when I put these architects, it's just to record keep. There is no other reason. I don't have any other reason other than that to have an architect on there, except for when it comes to Pete Dye. All right, enough rambling. Let's get into the spreadsheet. So here we go. We got the 3M open, spreadsheet up, and first and foremost, if I go to the notes page, you're gonna see. You remember, I usually have my table here for the buckets. Last week at the Rocket Mortgage Classic, that event replaced the Quicken National, or the Quicken Loans National. Jeez, the Quicken Loans Open, or the AT&T National. I can't remember which. It went through different names, but either way, that tournament always followed the Travelers. This tournament is replacing the Greenbrier Championship, and that tournament always followed the Quicken Loans. Well, there's no Quicken Loans, so I don't want to, create some bucket just based off some kind of history. I don't have any stats for this tournament that includes the bucket stats. What I ended up doing was kind of using most of the history of other tournaments, like a typical ranking for the buckets. So I weighted golfers who did not play the week before as the highest. It's the highest rank for me for the last week bucket, and then 1 through 20 I put as 2. Now I couldn't determine whether I should have used 3 for 20 to 40 or 3 for missed cut. Usually that's what it is, and to be honest, this is a 5, not a 4. I ended up changing that right before I got on, so I apologize for not having this updated, but that's how I would look at the ranking for this tournament. And I also, in the spreadsheet, when we go through it, have them sorted that way. And that's what I'm going to do for this week's tournament. I think in the future, what I plan to do is create a membership for the channel. And those who want to sign up for the membership, I'm going to go through either my top golfers in each bucket or give you lineups, or both. I might create like 6 lineups and say these are my highest confident lineups, but it's only going to be for members. I'll still do a preview video and go through all of this stuff like I typically do, but I'll get more into it. I'm still in the thinking phase of it, but I think that's what I'm gonna do. And it'll look something like this. So we're gonna go through the buckets, and I'm gonna filter this by golfers that I like. In last week bucket 1, these are my top golfers. I really like Brooks this week, mainly because he has an afternoon tee time, and mainly because he fades the golf ball. He has really good bent grass stats. Can you see that? Yeah. He has good 2019 bent grass stats. He has overall, his bent grass stats are great. I think he's a great putter on bent grass. I think he is a great golfer, and his price tag's a bit expensive, but I think it's worth it. Jason Day typically draws the golf ball. It really is just going to depend on how straight he hits the golf ball. I think he's been doing pretty well lately with driving accuracy. I don't have the stats, but I think you can play him and not have an issue. I mean, I'm going to sprinkle him in. He is a golfer that I've highlighted that I like. Bryson notoriously hits a draw, and it's just going to matter. Okay. He hits a draw, and like I said, off of the tee, most of the water's left. So he needs to be on his game, and he hasn't really been hitting the ball straight off of the tee. I don't know where his main miss is, but he is someone that I would definitely watch out for. I wouldn't go heavy on Bryson. He does have decent bent grass stats. A lot of his victories come on bent grass. And this is supposed to be kind of a birdies. One thing to add to the course information that just came to mind. The superintendent and somebody from the PGA Tour, I can't remember what his name is, but he works with the superintendents for each tournament. I don't think it's Jay Monahan, or Moynihan, it's somebody else. Anyways, they want this golf course to be a risk-reward golf course. They don't care if it's a birdie fest, but they are going to put some challenges, some risks out there where, you know, you're either going to get rewarded or you can get hurt hard. Keep that in mind because, you know, Bryson off of the tee has not been accurate lately. But he is a favorite. He has an afternoon tee time. I like that a lot. Going down the list, Tony Finau. I really like Tony Finau. He fades the ball. I don't know. I mean, his recent form is just awful. It's not good. He has decent bent grass stats. He has a lot of bent grass events under his belt, and his average is really good. It's one of the top averages for this week's tournament. Keegan Bradley is right underneath him, and I think he's actually a very good pivot from Tony Finau. I don't think maybe I'll play these guys together. I'm not positive, but Keegan does have an afternoon tee time. I really like that. He has a lot of bent grass events. He is one of the top 5 for bent grass event history, and he has decent stats for bent grass results. His approach game is really good. His putter has been awful, but you know, most of these tournaments have been played on POA and Bermuda, so keep that in mind. Let's see, who else am I on? Really like Kevin Na, and I think I'm just gonna go down the list here. I don't really have anything to say about a lot of these golfers here. Kevin Na is just, he reads well on my stats. He also has an afternoon tee time. Scott Piercy, when it comes to Birdie Fest tournaments, he does pretty well. I will say this, he's been missing at the Canadian Open, his tee shots were missing right, which would not be bad here. He's not going to find a lot of trouble to the right. He's a really good iron game player, and he fades the golf ball, which just means I like him that much more. And he has an afternoon tee time, so Scott Piercy might be a pretty decent lower 8K play I also like Adam Hadwin. Adam Hadwin, I know he used to have really good bent grass stats. I don't know exactly how or when his average went up. He hasn't really been playing the greatest as of late, but I do like Adam Hadwin. And then Pat Perez and Bill Haas kind of round out the bottom. Pat Perez was fighting an injury. I don't know if he's completely healed from that injury or if he's still battling it, but I think his last showing was not the greatest, and his recent form average isn't looking the greatest. Bill Haas is just, I don't think many golfers or many DFS players are going to play him. His overall bent grass history is really good. He finds the top 10 at a 20% mark. 2019 stats haven't been the greatest, and really the approach and the putting haven't been the greatest either. So I don't know how I feel about that. He's just one of those that I'm going to put up there. Some notables that I left out, Phil Mickelson, I just don't know. He's been so volatile. He's been trying to max out his driver, and with that, I think he's just been giving up accuracy. I have no idea where he's missing the golf ball, but he's missing it by miles. Actually, a lot of his misses go left, which would find water off of the tee. Daniel Berger, I'm just kind of cautious with Daniel Berger. I think he is a good play. If you wanted to play risky, he has a very good percentage of finding the top 10. So keep that in mind. This year though, his approach game and putting haven't been the greatest, but he also hasn't played much. Colin Morikawa, he's kind of a golfer that is on the rise, definitely a young talent. I think you could play him. He just doesn't have really any stats recorded, including bent grass stats. So definitely be cautious playing him, but I think he's a good bullet. And he has an afternoon tee time. Again, I'm targeting golfers in the afternoon. And really, I think that's about it. We don't need to talk about any more ones. Going on to the twos, not a very big player pool. You can see them all on the screen. But you have a lot of good golfers in here, starting with Hideki. I really like Hideki. It's unfortunate that he has a morning tee time, but I think that, he might be one of those golfers we just give the pass to. Probably the best stats around. And he's notoriously bad at putting, but maybe being on bent grass will help. And these greens are pretty flat. With all that added up, maybe Hideki's the best play on the slate. Patrick Reed is going to be a favorite of a lot of golfers or a lot of DFS pros out there. I'm sure you guys have already heard a lot of the people talk about Patrick Reed. He's been working a lot on his accuracy, especially off of the tee. I'm a bit hesitant. I mean, I do have him starred, so he is one of my favorites in the pool or in the bucket here. But I'm not positive how much I'm going to play of him. I'm definitely going to sprinkle him into lineups, but I'm not sure. Joaquin Niemann has been on fire lately, and I think his overall bent grass stats pretty darn good. He doesn't have a lot of bent grass events under his belt. He's got 14 of them, but I think just the fact that he's kind of on a heater, and I just think this is, just kind of ride the hot hand. Victor Hovland is another young talent that is just, he has no bent grass stats. I mean, he one event and he finished 32nd. I just think he's just a good talent. I don't know enough about his golf game to really give him any criticism, but the fact that he has played well since the US Open, including playing well at last week's tournament, I think speaks volumes. And actually the Travelers, he's played really well, and I don't think burnout is a factor. He's played 3 events since joining the PGA. Well, he joined the PGA Tour after the US Open, but he played US Open, Travelers, and then Rocket Mortgage. Cameron Tringali and Taylor Gooch are golfers that I've heard a lot of the DFS pros talk about. They also find my models that well, maybe not so much Taylor Gooch when it comes to the bent grass stats, but he is one of the top golfers when it comes to approach. So that's definitely on my agenda, and he does have an afternoon tee time. Again, I like that. Victor Hovland and Joaquin Niemann have afternoon tee times. Rory Sabatini is a notable that I left off. He just does not have good bent grass stats. I know he's kind of riding in a heater, but the fact that he is an established veteran that has not had many successes on bent grass gives me enough caution not to play him. If he gets top 20, so be it. At 9,500, I'm not going to play him getting a top 20, and I think he's got the potential for a top 20. But if he doesn't find top 10, I'm not gonna regret not playing him. With that being said, I'm probably gonna sprinkle like 1 or 2 lineups of him in, just so I don't miss out. A lot of other good golfers down there, including last week's winner Nate Lashley, JJ Spawn, Sepp Straka, Doc Redman. I'm gonna avoid these golfers. Maybe one of them finds the top 10 and I look like an idiot, but I'm just going to take the risk of not playing them. Let's go to the bucket 3. And this bucket, again, also not very big. These are your last week 20 to 40 finishes. I do like Sung Jae quite a bit. He does not have very good bent grass stats, but he's only played 7 events. Now that I see that, I'm almost going to talk myself off of him. I'm not sure if I am going to play a lot of him, and he also has a morning tee time. So keep that in mind. Charles Howell III, I originally didn't have him I originally did not star him because I don't know. It might be a biased reason because I don't like the fact that he finished so poorly at last week's tournament. He seems like a golfer that can get hot real fast, but then fizzle real fast as well. I've played him so much in DFS golf that when I think he's going to do well, all he does is grind out pars. And Sunday's round reminded me of that. I had a really good lineup with him in it, and I just wanted him to shoot a 6 under, 7 under score, and got 2 over. What the hell, man? Danny Lee I put up there because he just has the potential to go really low, and we haven't really heard much of him, and his bent grass stats are really good. Putting and approach, not the greatest, but I'm gonna just, I'll probably overlook that just for a couple lineups. And then Jimmy Walker. I played Jimmy Walker last week. He had a very good showing, but also fizzled, much like Charles Hall III on. Oh no! He fizzled Saturday's round. He had a 6 under on his Sunday round, so kind of came back into form. I don't know if he found anything or if the conditions were just easier during that time of the morning. I don't know. I don't really like anyone else. I mean, Bronson Burgoon has a 13% clip of finding the top 10 at bent grass events, and he's got 16 events under his belt, so that's something maybe to look at. I don't like that he has a morning tee time, but that is just something small. Yeah, I'm not sure I really care for anyone else in that bucket. So let's go on to 4. Bucket 4. So bucket 4, we got, these are all missed cuts from last week. Obviously, these 4 golfers, really disappointing. But, a missed cut is pretty good most of the time because it gives the players a little bit more to work for going into the next week's tournament. So I won't play all of these golfers at the same time. Ryan Moore is a bit spendy. So is Charlie Hoffman the value-wise, not the greatest, but bent grass, pretty darn good for both of those golfers. And when you also incorporate approach, they are top 20 in the field this week for approach, shots gained approach. So that's something definitely to look at. And Ryan Moore's putter is middle of the pack. Charlie Hoffman is kind of at the, he's underneath middle of the pack. Corey Connors, the best ball striker, I think. Nah. Well, the best ball striker in this this bucket. You know what? This is what I'm going to do. I'm going to hide this information so you can see some of the stats. There we go. Sorry for not showing that in the last 3 buckets, but I basically talked through those buckets. So yeah, Corey Connors, best in approach this week for this bucket. This bucket's actually fairly large, and there's just a lot of golfers here at the bottom that I think you can just obviously just not worry about. Let me finish through, and then we'll talk about some of the golfers that I think you could probably play a few bullets with. Keith Mitchell, I think just the fact that his tee to green, off the tee stats pretty good. His approach just over, I mean, he's in the positive. He has a really good birdie or better percentage. Let me scroll over. He's 13th in the field for birdie or better, 2nd in the field for off the tee, and 10th tee to green. And I think tee to green is going to matter a little bit. It's probably more of an approach, but obviously you need to hit the ball pretty straight off of the tee. So tee to green, I still care about that. I think that's a good stat to look at. Sam Ryder is just he has an 18% clip of finding top 10s at bentgrass courses, although he only has 11 events under his belt. But he does have an afternoon tee time. I like that. Hank Lebioda, he is kind of, one of those golfers that came out of nowhere. He only has 1 event under his belt that came this year. He got a 17th place. So I don't know, how to take that, if it's just, keep it in mind or play off of it. 1 event's just not enough to tell. But his stats are pretty decent. I know I said pair putting stats with bent grass stats, but I have to remember, and I also have to mention that these putting stats incorporate all the tournaments. I don't yet have putting stats based off of grass type. That will come in the future, but for now, this is just everything the PGA gives me, and this will include POA splits, and Bermuda. But, Hank Lebioda at 6,900, an afternoon tee time, I'm sure you could find worse golfers. And then Beau Hosler is just notoriously good on bent grass. I shouldn't say notoriously. He's just good on bent grass. He is one of the best putters, and he's one of the best putters on bent. So it's definitely something to consider. He has a 23% clip of, well, not a clip, but 23% birdie or better average, which gives him, he is 16th birdie or better. He is the 4th. Hold on here. Okay, so he's 38th in the field for birdie or better, 4th in putting, and then the rest of the stats aren't the greatest. But I wouldn't worry too much of that. So that rounds the bucket 4. I left out some notables here. Brian Harmon had, he was kind of a favorite last week. He's got 62 events. I think that's 2nd in the field for bent grass, and he's got decent results at 8,000. That's actually not bad. I think I'm gonna highlight him. I think he's worth it. Jason Duffner, last week he kind of burned everyone. I don't know what to take of Duffner this week. He might be worth a play. I think I'll play him in some lineups. Luke List, I really like Luke List in most events, and I think he's gonna break through one of these events, but he just doesn't have good enough bent grass stats. That's why I don't have him on here. And Russell Henley is a golfer that has really good bent grass stats. I don't know if something's wrong with him, but he just has not been playing well at all. I think I might sprinkle, I'm actually going to star him so I can remember to play him in a few lineups. There's Matthew Wolf. The hype train has slowed down a little bit on Matthew Wolf. I don't know what his poor play is going to do to his psyche. I know his coach likes to talk a lot about how he's tough and gritty. He doesn't take criticisms about his golf swing too harshly, but I just don't know how his confidence level is gonna play into this week's tournament, just for the mere fact that he's not played well the last two tournaments. I originally liked KH Lee. He just doesn't have good bent grass stats. I'll probably play him because I'm a sucker. Troy Merritt has really good birdie or better stats. He has pretty good everything stats, actually. Just doesn't have a very good clip of anything bent grass related. Sebastian Munoz is somebody that I think you could probably play. I think you could, hit a bullet or two with him. He might actually win a GPP for you. Bent grass stats pretty decent. Actually, his 2019 bent grass, not very good. I still think he's worth a bullet. Same with Robert Streb. 54 events, 11% clip of finding the top 10. That's pretty decent. Same with Kelly Craft and Chris Stroud down here. And I also like Curtis Luck. So they're not good enough to find, for me to star them, but they're good nonetheless. Fives, there aren't many. Just for their price, I highlighted some of these golfers. I really don't like anyone from this bucket. I'm probably, if I were to make 100 lineups in total, I might play 10 golfers from this bucket. I don't think I'm going to talk much about this bucket. Bud Colley's been middling lately since he's returned from his absence. Harris English is a golfer that for his price, not too bad. I put him up there because his putting stats are good, and his overall bent grass isn't bad. 50.9 in the field like this isn't so bad. Roberto Castro. I know it's Roberto. It's just a little inside joke with me and a friend. I think I'm going to play him in a few lineups. I usually go by rule 7% or better, top 10 clips for grass types. Usually play that. I do like Nick Watney. I didn't star him because he doesn't have good bent grass stats. Same goes with Camp Champ. Especially with how much water there is, if the guy can't hit irons into greens, you know what? I'm going to say it right now, I'm just going to completely fade him. I'm not going to play him in a single lineup. Dylan Fratelli, he is he's a very talented golfer, just doesn't have good bent grass stats. He only has 4 events under his belt. 7,200, I think you could probably play better. I really like Max Homa. You've heard me talk about his golf swing before. He's got a really nice golf swing, just doesn't have good bent grass stats. That's why I'm avoiding him. I think if you wanted to play any bullets down here, Anirban Lahiri might be the guy for you. I think that's he's a very streaky golfer, and he can find birdies in bunches. It doesn't have a very good birdie or better percentage this year, but he is definitely a golfer that can score low. And on to our last bucket to round off the video. I've got nobody highlighted. Scott Stallings is the top of that bucket. Look at the overall bent grass stats. Not good. And these were golfers who finished, 60th to 80th last week. No one really even has good 2019 stats. Smiley Kaufman kind of stinks, man. He had a great first round, and it's nice to see him playing better, or at least making a cut. But just the fact that he fell so far, it's unfortunate. But yeah, those are all my buckets, guys. Those are all the golfers that I like in each bucket. I don't know really how many you should play of each. I think what I'm going to do is probably play, I'll probably start with 2 1s, two 2s, a 3, and I don't know. We'll just sprinkle the rest with salary. And I think this is a good week. I mean, I'm going to probably cascade more this week. And in fact, I might just cascade completely. But hopefully that helped you guys into this tournament. Again, my big things: target golfers who fade the golf ball, who will have good approach stats, who have good bent grass stats, and pair putting with bent grass. I think that really will help you find the right players going into this week. Should be interesting. It's brand new. A brand new tournament with no course history and no recent form history to really analyze. So with that, guys, I appreciate you watching the video. Thank you for your continued support. Hopefully you guys do well this week. And again, if you like the video, leave a like, comment with anything, who you like, what you thought of the video, and if there's any other improvements that you guys have suggestions for, let me know. And subscribe if you haven't. But hopefully you guys do well this week and win a lot of money. All right, see you later.